T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight we have on Dennis McNamara of DJM Reptiles. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, from his work in the zoo field to his liasis breeding, scrub pythons. We have a lot to cover, but before we get into that, as always, USARC. So for anyone who is unaware, USARC is the organization who is fighting for our rights to keep our animals, run our businesses, and pursue this way of life. To check out more about USARC, go to usarc.org for information. And if you're not already, become a member. We have strength in numbers as a community, so the more people we have behind the cause, the better. And we are also brought to you by Texas Chondros, Mark Hager. For anyone who's in the arboreal game, particularly the green tree python game, you probably already know the name Mark Hager and Texas Chondros. A very high-end designer green tree python breeder, of course, right here in the great state of Texas. He also has a wonderful Instagram account that not only features his animals, but lots of other great keepers here in Texas. So check out Mark Hager of Texas Chondros. We're also brought to you by SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian Susan is a very high-end breeder of tree monitors, rare gecko species, abronia, and more. So if you want to check him out, he's on all different forms of social media. He has an incredible collection, someone who I really look up to in this industry, and someone who I think is a great example of a professional breeder in today's day and age. We're also brought to you by Blake's Exotic Feeders. So for anybody who has any reptiles that eat birds, check out Blake's Exotic Feeders. They hand raise all of their quail at their facility, so you know that you're getting quality animals from a quality source. So check out Blake's Exotic Feeders. And we were also brought to you by the Reptile Talks. So this is a symposium going down in Anaheim, California, May 17th through the 19th, with talks from different industry leaders, both from the herpetoculture side, the academic side, every aspect of the industry. It should be a great time. So if you're either local or looking to travel to a symposium, check out the Reptile Talks. And here we are, episode 9, back again for another week. And man, you know, we could go on, but I want to get this show on the road, so let's bring him on. Dennis, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. How are things over there in Virginia?
Busy, but weather's nice. It's been getting a little bit cold at night this week for whatever reason, but it seems like we're in the right stretch of weather, and I don't know, just things are good.
How cold does it get there in the winter?
I mean, we haven't had snow in like 2 years, so
okay.
Last year we had a day where it was like in the single digits overnight. Mm-hmm. This year it got cold. Like, I don't know, we might have night times that get like in the 20s, but it doesn't seem to last very long. It's usually like a week or two.
Okay.
The weather's pretty mild, other than the year my wife moved here. When she was coming here, which we weren't dating at that point in time, but I was like, oh, the weather's always great here. And then she moved here. It snowed like 4 times that year, and she's like, what the heck happened here? And I was like, so 10 years ago, I guess we had a really cold winter, but since then it's not been too bad.
That's good. Yeah, that's not bad. I don't miss the winters at all, being in a warmer climate now. So
yeah,
definitely not a lot of virtue to it, the way I see it at least. But then on the other hand, you know, you can say that the 110 degree summer days aren't worth it, and you know, they might not be.
We have a pool and we live near the bay and near the beach, so if it's hot, we try to be in the water somewhere, so that works out for us.
Yeah, that sounds pretty incredible. Not gonna lie, that sounds pretty awesome. So man, we have a lot to talk about tonight, but I want to start with your work in the zoo field. So how long have you been in the zoological field now?
This past January was 24 years. I started at the zoo.
So at Virginia Zoo the entire 24 years?
Yep. It's probably older than you are.
Yes, it is in fact older than I am.
It happens now that I meat people and I'll say it and I'm like, wow, you're an intern and you're younger than I've been here. So
yeah. Well, so how did that? How, was that always something you wanted to do? Was to be in the zoo field? Where how did that kind of come about?
So no, I didn't want to. I don't know that I say I didn't want to be in it. I just didn't ever think about it. I worked in. I've told this story before, but I worked in a pet store and I got to. And there's a pretty good herp community here. And the guy that worked reptiles at the zoo at that point in time, his name was Mike Wahop, and he's still a friend of mine. He lives not far from here, and he came to the pet store I worked at and was like, "You should really come work at the zoo." And he brought me an application. I filled it out, and he turned it in for me, and I got a job. Which is kind of crazy because that would never happen today. But yeah, I got a job. I started out as a part-time keeper, and then I don't know what I'd say a month into it, like they asked me if I wanted to go work elephants, so I started working elephants for a while. And then when I got a full-time job, I worked with tigers and hoofstock, and then I went back and did elephants, and then I would help out with reptiles and do things like that. And then it just kind of like, and then I became the supervisor of like elephants, giraffe, things like that in 2012. There's also a job being the reptile curator at that point, or lead at that point in time, whatever it was called. And so I wanted to switch over to that. And so I've been in my position now since 2012.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, as you said, that's no longer possible today. I mean, in today's day and age, what would your trajectory have looked like to be where you are? What would someone have to go through today to do that?
Well, I think it's all doable. So like, but the thing is the way, we work for the city. So as far as getting a job, you would have to have some sort of you would have to have a year's worth of experience somehow, like in a zoological field, which I didn't have at that point in time. So we offer like internships or seasonal jobs or things like that. And so we have opportunities that are there for people to do. You just have to work for cheap and put some work in, and then you could get in there. And we always say it's like a 4-month working interview. And then some people do it 2 or 3 times if they like it enough. And then it just kind of builds up in the resume. So it's all doable. It just would have been more work. And I don't know that I would have done that work at that time. I don't know. I mean, maybe I would have. In my head, I moved out when I was 19. I went to college. My parents paid for my college, but I had to pay for my living expenses. So like me going to work for $200 a month, which is what we pay an intern, I just couldn't have done it.
Sure.
So it wouldn't have been possible. But I would just say, I try to tell everybody now, if there's something you like, then just work hard and get along, and you never know who's going to give you what opportunity. And I think as I've done this, I've gotten to hire a lot of people. I've got to be in a lot of interviews, probably hundreds of interviews over the years. Like, it's so much more important to get along and to be a decent person than it is to be an experienced person. And because you can always teach them what to do. But if somebody's a pain in the neck, you don't want them around, kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely, I get that. So like, I was in it's kind of a sector of the zoological world in high school. You probably know Rob Carmichael, the wildlife.
Yeah.
So I worked for him throughout high school. And obviously there was a lot of people coming through who had, they were at Brookfield Zoo for a while. And now they're here before they want to go to Lincoln Park, or they're going to go to Atlanta, or, and to me it was always like the consensus was no biology degree, they're not even going to look at you. Is that the case?
I have a psychology degree, so it doesn't, like, for us, really a computer picks you. So being that we're a city organization, it's all about fairness and, credentials and whatever else. And so I don't even know that it matters what your degree is in. I actually don't know I don't know that it matters what your degree is in, as long as you have a bachelor's, or if you have you can have an associate's in zoo sciences, like stuff from, now I'm going to forget what they're called, but there's a couple different schools you can go to. One's in Florida and one's MORPH, and one's whatever the one is in Florida.
Oh, it's I know the Florida one you're talking about, because I had looked into it when I was.
I have a keeper that works for me that went there, and I can't remember it. I don't know why, but so there's zoo science class. What's that?
It's associated with Gainesville, but it's something else.
Yeah.
Well,
it'll come to me mid-sentence and something else.
Maybe someone in the comments knows what we're talking about. We can, yeah.
So you can do that, and then just kind of, if you have those things, then you get in there. But yeah, you just have to you really have to like just check the boxes. And so if you do that basically through the system for the city, then you can get, and we can't pick you out either. Like then you could pick somebody out. Now, if you were to apply, like I couldn't say I want Steven's resume. They pick you out like the top 5, and they send it to you. And so, like if I get those, I can be like, can you look to see if I know somebody applied, I can ask if they were in the mix. But if they don't have whatever, then we don't get them.
Interesting. Yeah, that's. The city bureaucracy is definitely a part of it. I feel like it's kind of a shame. Like you wouldn't be able to get your top candidate kind of based on merit, I guess. If someone in like like the curator position where you're trying to kind of structure your team.
Yeah, I mean, but there are ways you could do it. So like if you were an intern or if you got in there in some ways, we can make it. If you can get in the system somehow, like then we can finagle things once you're in the system. A little bit. I don't want to say it too much. I mean, but like if you're seasonal, we can make it easier to pick you out then because you're already an employee kind of thing.
That makes sense.
Or not seasonal. What do they call it? They're temperate. They're like there's these jobs they give out that are basically like it's basically part-time. They give you 1,040 hours. And so you become a full-time keeper for 1,040 hours, which basically works out to be 6 months. And so if there's a job opening at the right time, then we can move them into another job if they do a really good job.
Okay.
So there's options. It just makes it so it's not so easy.
Sure.
But it's doable.
Sure. So like what would be a couple of things that, you have a hypothetical 21, 22-year-old listening who has an aspiration to be in the zoo field? Like what would be some of like the major things to kind of keep in mind when trying to traverse that, and even like to get to like a position where you are today? Like
to actually, once you have the job, or to get,
I guess from the bottom up, I guess or just even like a mindset or a way of communicating, or
I would say my mindset is I don't turn anything down. So if anybody needs any help anywhere in the zoo, I help them. And if anybody on my team can help them, we help them. If they need something built, we're going to go help them. We're going to do whatever else. We don't turn I try not to turn any opportunity down that we can be a part of. We have people that are like, that's not my job description. We work for development. We work for marketing. We work for Africa. We work for Asia. We work for the farm. Not always, but like if those people need help, we'll come help them. And I think you'll find that the keepers that do that, people notice that. Because, what somebody does in the farm affects what we do in reptiles, so you may not think that all the way, but like if they give somebody a bad experience or they have something, whatever else, that affects them when they come to us, and vice versa. So I want to, and I'm sure I have days where I'm not great about it, but I want to be there to help whoever needs help and do things like that. And so I think that, and I also when I was younger in the thing, when I was an Africa keeper, taking care of elephants and giraffe all the time in Bongo. Yeah. If they needed help with Venomous, I was like, hey, I'll come over and learn to do Venomous with you. So I went over there and basically was able to help them. And then they had big snake, we had African rock pythons and stuff like that. And so I was like, can I go help that? Or if there was hellbender research, I went and did hellbender research. Nobody in the herp team did at that point in time, but I did, and I was an Africa keeper. So if I saw any opportunity, if somebody wanted to learn how to drive a bobcat, I drove a bobcat. I'd go fix a yard in the farm. I just see it as take whatever opportunity is out there and do as many things as you can, mainly to help people, because maybe they'll help you one day. And it also just makes you look good. And if you're not there and you're not trying to better yourself, then what are you there for? I also am one of those guys that in this department. So when I first got this job, there were 2 of us. It was me and a keeper. And we had, I don't know, we probably had 35 exhibits and maybe 100 animals, something like that. And so any opportunity for me to grab an exhibit, any exhibit was down, I'd be like, hey, we could put a reptile in there. Anything we could build, anything we could do. We took over some monkey exhibits to put a retic in. And now in, 12 years, now I have a team of 4 plus myself. So there's 5 of us. We have probably about 98 species, and we have probably upwards of 450 animals, give or take whatever babies we have.
Wow.
So I just always am pushing the envelope. I'm always trying to get something new. Always trying to, like, we renovated our building in 2018, had a company do it. And basically we're re-renovating it in-house. We're tearing all the wall. We had somebody tear the walls out for us, but we're redoing all the concrete work on the walls and making all the exhibits better. And just kind of, I'm always in a position of trying to make things better.
Sure.
Which is a pain in the neck. Probably, I'm sure the people that work with me, probably some days I'm sure they're like, can you chill out? But like, I don't know. I'm always just trying to make it. So what can we get next? What can we do next? What can we, like, we're taking over an old sloth and an old monkey exhibit, and I'm getting a pair of parenti. And so we're going to renovate that exhibit ourselves. We try to do all of our work ourselves rather than rely on maintenance and whatever else if we can, or outside sources. So we try to do, I have one guy that does a fantastic job of rock work with concrete, and I have a volunteer that helps us that she's done a lot of our exhibits, and she's done a fantastic job too. So I try to just use the resources we have and just make it so everybody can do what they want. Really, if they have a desire to do stuff like that, I give them as much autonomy as possible and say, go for it. And if we need to tweak it, we can tweak it, but let's just take the bull by the horns and make it happen. And it makes it so there's a lot of work, but I think it also makes it so it's rewarding because you get to do stuff, and there's always something new coming in. So I don't know, I kind of make it so I think it's exciting for me. That's what makes it exciting for me, you know.
Yeah, certainly. You have a super fan here.
Who's
we
that?
got William.
Oh yeah,
Hero.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. That might need to be a future episode on here. But so on that topic, what's it like managing a team that's in charge of managing a large collection of animals? Because I've done that with rodents, but with reptiles, really, that's something that's foreign to me. So
right,
when you're working with specified husbandry, there's a level of disconnect that you're going to have from that. How is it handling that? How do you manage that?
So I work in the building every day in the morning.
Okay.
So I work in the building from 7:30 or around the area, whatever, from 7:30 till say 12:30 or 1. Today it was till 2. And then I go on the computer, or I go to meetings from say 1 to 4:30, depending on whatever the day is. I really try to like I write down whatever the feeding schedules are. I write down whatever we're supposed to feed. They know what the temperature parameters are. They know what the whatever else. And so I really try to make it so I show them what I want. We spray everything every day. We make sure everybody's drinking all the way. And then I kind of let them do their own thing. And if it's something that you can tell as you walk by the exhibits, you can tell what needs to be tweaked or what needs to be whatever else. And I mean, I have a good staff, but I really do try to do my best to let them do their own thing. So I show them what I want, and I'll critique it if I need to critique it. But I really try to, I have found personally, when I make people do exactly what I want, they don't follow through all the way because they're so worried about what I want. So basically the conversation I always have is, I'm going to show you what I want out of this thing. And so we'll work together. And then I want you to get to the end result. I don't care how you get there, but I want you to get to this end result. And so I have found if I give people that autonomy and give them that free reign they can redo the exhibit. They can redo. That doesn't mean that I might say, I don't really like it, we need to fix it. But if I give them that free reign, they seem to learn better, and they seem to take it on better, and they seem to do better in general. And they're also happier to be there, and they're not frustrated. So sure. I really do my best to make it so, and not everybody does it, but I'll be like, hey, if you want a project that's yours, pick it and do it, and then I'll leave you alone. And we'll look at it. And I mean, I'm ultimately responsible. So we will kind of go through that, but I really just, we go through, I show them what I want, and then I let them kind of go. Cause It's not that hard. All this stuff is not that hard. It's really, we make it hard, but if you're paying attention and you're making sure they're watered and make sure they have the heat they need and make sure it's not too dry or too wet or whatever. And, and really with everybody spraying everything, I can really walk by and see how things look. Like we have, there's say 70 exhibits, maybe more now. I don't know. But I see all of them every day pretty much. So I can, if I don't go to Africa, I don't see those, but I can, I can kind of tell, or I'll try to work around different areas so I can just check the animals out. We just did a new Savannah monitor exhibit up in our Africa section that I haven't really spent as much time up there as I probably could have or should have yet. But that's fine because I trust them, so they'll tell me. And people always want to tell you what's wrong. So if they know, they're going to tell me what's wrong, and then we can kind of go critique it.
Yeah, makes sense. And I bet in that environment you have you're going to mostly get pretty motivated people through those doors who want those keeper positions.
You get some that are motivated. You get some that aren't.
Okay.
I would say you get different personalities, but I really try to make it so I like kind of put people where their strengths are.
Sure.
And so kind of also let them kind of pick out what their strengths are. And so if they pick it out, then maybe they go to the places they want to go, and then they just like it better, and they'll do a better job. And different people work it. I have keepers that do, I don't know if they're watching this, I have keepers that probably do twice as much as other keepers.
I wonder who.
but as long as they're, I don't know if that's the truth all the time, but there's some that just work faster and work than others.
Right,
and so I don't know if I'd say twice as much, but like some work faster than others, some spend more time in certain areas than others. So, and honestly, I don't really personally care as long as they get along and as long as they're okay with it amongst themselves. As long as we get it done, it doesn't really matter to me as long as the result is good. We're there, so as long as something's not getting missed and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, then I'm kind of good with it.
Yeah, I feel like for reptile care, I feel like speed is almost a detriment at times. Like I've worked with people who I got to do these 3 racks and they're done in 15 minutes. And I'm like, did you even look at any of the snakes?
Right. Yeah. I always tell people accuracy before speed. Yeah. So if you're accurate before speed, we can work on that speed. And if there's enough of us, and now we have a full staff, which is full for now. It's a fairly newer full staff at this time, but there's enough time if we allot for it for everything to get done. So if somebody wants to take longer to do whatever else, as long as, to me, it's more important that the other keepers are okay with it than it is for me in some ways. Because I just want that to be a cohesive unit to make sure they're all getting along and make sure they're doing it. And so sometimes people tell you, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you'll see that somebody's frustrated. Sometimes, I don't know. I got frustrated with something today. So, sometimes there's frustration that happens that you don't really expect. And then all of a sudden you're like, I didn't really expect that. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah. I got frustrated today that I don't know that I was expecting to be frustrated, but it's just, I have a lot going on and it caught up with me for a minute and then I had to chill out. So,
yeah. But I guess it just kind of comes down at the end of the day to the level of communication within everyone of like, yeah, I'm frustrated, but here's why, instead of I'm going to yell at you and storm out.
Yeah. And I'm not much of I'm not going to yell at you and I'm not going to whatever else, but I'm going to tell you what I think. Sure. And I might not tell you right then, and I might tell you right then. And if I tell you something if I say something that I probably shouldn't, then I'm probably going to come back and talk to you about it later on. But I am definitely one of those guys. I can't let things go. So if something bothers me, we're going to have to talk about it at some point in time. I'm going to do my best, especially at this time in my life. I'm going to do my best to not talk about it when I'm mad. We'll talk about it another time. We're just going to go over it. And then hopefully we can kind of figure it out. I've had some really crappy bosses in my life, and I've done whatever I can do to not be them. That's I really think is what my goal in life right now is. I don't want to be certain people. And
yeah, that makes sense. I can empathize with that feeling. So the team you have right now, was there like a process of trial and error with people to get there? Like how long did it take for you to get this team together that you're working with now?
Well, one guy is, there's a guy that just started probably 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
I would say I don't know if it's the children or if the whatever else, but my perception of time lately has been horrible. As far as I'll be like, that was just 2 months ago, and it's like been 8 months. But we have a guy that just started within the last few months. I have another guy, Mac, that started probably 6 or 8 months ago. But he was an intern before that, so he's been with us for a while. He's been with us probably a year, or at least close to a year overall. So he blends in because I don't ever figure out. I can't ever remember what part of it was what. And then I have 2 girls that work there that have probably been there close to 5 years.
Wow.
So probably 4 or 5 years. what is it, 2008? Yeah, probably 4 or 5, maybe even more. I don't even know. Around 5 years, something like that. So, no, I have people that, I mean, I have it, so I'm in a good spot as far as things go.
Sure.
And I had a great keeper that I've had a few keepers kind of come and go, and I had a guy that was he was from Indianapolis. Well, he's not from Indianapolis, but he worked at the Indianapolis Zoo.
Okay.
He'd been there for 20 some years, and he came and worked for a while, and I really liked him. But he ended up going back to Illinois to open up storage units with his parents, with his mom. So he left. So he was great to have around because he was super chill and knowledgeable and easy to have. And I would say I miss having him around. But yeah, I mean, it's a good crew, and it's everybody, they're all different, very different, and how they take care of stuff is different and whatever else. So, there's a lot of quirkiness and whatever else, but it all works.
Yeah. Fair enough. So I kind of want to get into some of the different areas of the collection over there at the zoo, but let's start with the monitors. I know you guys had some pretty awesome monitors over there. So what do you guys all got cooking up for monitors?
So right now we have a white throat, we have a Savannah, we have a pair of crocodile monitors, we have blue tree, black tree, yellow tree, and green tree monitors. And I think that's it for right now. We did have a Grays monitor, but we lost her to an issue. She just had exillomitis, which is weird because she had laid in that same exhibit before, but she wasn't with a male. But that was a few years ago. We lost her.
That sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. So on the tree monitors, though, you've had them breed on a number of occasions, correct?
I have, but we have not successfully hatched any of them, and I've had them eat a lot of their eggs, and I've had them whatever else. I want to get some younger animals because, like the green tree monitors, we have the male is probably 15, and he's kind of arthritic, and those two have laid a ton of eggs, some of which have looked really good, and I've had her come out of the nest box eating them. I've seen him eat them. I've seen whatever else. So I think I need to tweak something that we're doing.
Sure.
And then we had blues, and we got eggs a couple times from blues, but I have not been able to hatch them yet. We have a pair of blacks, but he's too much for her. Every time she moves, he chases her. We did have her with her brother when we first got him. We got a sibling pair, and they got along swimmingly. They were fantastic together on exhibit. And then we got this new male he's a pretty big male, and he just if she moves, he just thinks it's exciting. And
interesting.
She hides and doesn't eat and whatever else. And so I want to get another male just to try that out to see if maybe I wouldn't mind getting another pair, but just to see if I could try something because I have them in separate enclosures, but I only have one exhibit. So I'd like to try to move some stuff around. I want to put some off exhibit holding cages that are the same size as the exhibit so I can move them around. I've listened to a few of Brian's things, and I'd like to mimic a little bit what he's doing, I think.
Yeah.
And the yellows, I only have a male, and he's a giant male.
Okay.
And I just need a female. So
yeah.
I would like to have a pair of those too. He's probably the most bold of all. That thing is like, I don't know, he's big and he's kind of crazy, and he's big. He's the most outgoing, not always in the best way, but he's the most outgoing.
Okay. Yeah, that was my experience with yellows as well, is that a lot less fear, a lot less reactivity than like the blues in particular. Blues and blacks I found were both a little bit on the flighty side.
I'd say our blacks are pretty chill. Our greens will jump onto the cart to come eat off the table. Like the greens are super chill. The yellow, he'll just every once in a while, he'll like jump out and like jump on you. And then like I've had him jump on me on my head, jump off that and we have like aggregate walls, and he'll like run up the wall and then run down. He like ran up my leg one time, bit me in the knee, and then like ran back in the exhibit. He just does weird stuff. Like he just is like all over. He's like, I don't know. I feel like he's like schizophrenic sometimes. He just like runs around. He'll just be like sitting there chilling, and all of a sudden he'll just run around and be crazy.
That's funny.
It's entertaining. But I would love to pair. I'd love to pair all of them up and I'd love to get them all going. I just need to pay attention a little bit more and probably get a couple other setups going so I could try it better.
That's got to be kind of difficult in the zoo field, like in the zoo kind of setting with some of those projects. Would you say, as far as like balancing?
Yeah, you're in that area. Like I'm in the tree monitor area because I usually take care of them. I'm probably in there for 10 minutes a day. Maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like I take care of that. change their water, spray them down, feed them on the days they're going to get fed, do whatever, cleaning or whatever, and then move on. So that's the thing is like the way that works is you're just kind of always moving because you have to get stuff done by the time people get in there and whatever else. So you're not really spending a lot of time paying attention sitting there in front of stuff. So it definitely makes it harder to pay attention like I would like to on some of the things.
Yeah. Then like when it comes down to like balancing the need of the display and then the need of the animals, what's kind of the process there? Because, obviously the zoo exhibits and what us as private keepers would be like, this is an ideal breeding enclosure and this is what you want to do for the zoo. Like, how do you balance those needs as someone who wants to breed these species?
I'm not going to do the same thing. I mean, I think we keep them kind of how you would, other than, some of the things might be a little bit bigger than you would do.
Sure.
Some of the things might be smaller. I don't know. But, like our tree monitor enclosures, they got sized differently than what I wanted them to be originally, but they're 3.5 by 2.5 by 5.
Okay.
So we have 4 of those like that. And then we have some animal plastics cages off exhibit that they can go into if we need to move. I'd like to get some 4 by 2 by 4s for behind, just so I have some other stuff to move around. But I don't know. I mean, we try to make it so the exhibits have places to hide, but so we try to make it so there's a lot of options for hiding or a lot of options for whatever else, because things are usually out more if you do that. We just moved some frilled lizards and some blue-tongued skinks to an exhibit today. It's a 6 by 3 by 4. It's got 2 frills in it and a pair of blue tongues in it, and just put as many branches, as many things in there, and then made some tiers for the blue tongues to climb and to get up there and go bask. And so just try to make it so there's a lot of surface area, a lot of levels, a lot of basking here, basking there, just opportunity, just because it makes it more interesting. And the animals do more if you give them more interesting stuff like that. I'd say I keep things way more simply personally, but we try to make it so and I also try to mix as much stuff as I can, just to make it so it's interesting for people to see.
Yeah.
And try to pick and choose. And we've never had a bad mixture. As far as like species go. So, we put frogs in with snakes, or, put lizards in. We put lizards in with snakes. We'll put the frogs and lizards together or whatever, depending on what it is. But really the big part is just to try to make it interesting. So my goal is to make the exhibits look different from each other, so when you walk by you stop to check it out, because you see plenty of people that just walk with a straight face and that never even look to the left or right. And so I want to do whatever we can do to make it so you stop at least and look at them.
Fair enough. So back on the monitors, so the croc monitors, you said you have a pair over there? Are they an adult pair?
Kinda, I would say. He's an animal I got from Dan Maleri, and he's probably 6. So he's probably 7 feet. I don't know. He's probably 7 foot. She is a female that was born at the Honolulu Zoo, and she is probably 3 or 4. I have to look at her number. She's probably close to 6 feet now. So we have not ever introduced them yet. We just redid his enclosure and put a whole bunch of branches, We had a lot of branches, but we made it so there's kind of like a super highway above the ground. It's like it's a 15 by 15 by 8 exhibit. With a whole bunch of ups and downs and rounds and bouts, and it's got a pool in it, and it's got 3 or 4 different basking spots in it. And it moves to an area that you can shift him off. So there's like a 6 by 3 by 6 or a 7 shift area behind it, so we can move him off to clean out the pool or to do whatever else we want to do anything. And there's also a mirrored one of those next to it, so we're going to actually move her next to him. So that way, and it's got a shift door between it, so we can, because there's been some different research about like that the females are receptive during certain follicular times, and she lets you she's really chill. She'll let you kind of do whatever you want to her. He's not so chill. But so we talked about maybe trying to do some ultrasound stuff with her so we would know. But I'd love to put them together. And I mean, that's a pretty good space. I think it would work. I just would hate to have a bad experience with it. So I would say I'm reluctant about that just because, I mean, those things are no joke for sure.
Yeah, I've been witness to one of those situations, but from my understanding, it's typically the females going after the males with croc monitors. So
yeah, and so supposedly it has something to do. Supposedly, it seems to correlate a lot of times with follicular development. So I'd like to figure that out a little bit more and see what they do when they're next to each other and see what they do just seeing each other. I don't even know. Who knows if they even care, but I'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in that large of a space, you know, the female might be territorial, but hopefully not to the point where she's like chasing down the male, considering that he can probably get pretty far away from her.
Yeah, and we also set it up. So we've done a lot of chameleon breeding and a lot of different other species. And so really one of the things I try to do is there's as many basking spots as possible, as many options for going this way, that way, up, down, around. So like if somebody's getting chased, unless they go in a corner, there's always a way for them to get away.
Sure.
And so there's always an option. So that way, if somebody's getting funky, you can move them here or they can do it on their own. So we did try to build that in and tried to make it so the options are there for them to be able to do a lot on their own. So we probably will try to introduce them, I'd say, within the next year or so. I wouldn't be surprised if we do that. But I guess I just have to build up the cojones for it. But yeah, I mean, that would be awesome to be able to do. I saw Quetzal and them just got some eggs.
Yeah, I was going to say,
awesome.
Shout out Reptilandia for the croc monitor eggs. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. We sent them some stuff last year.
Okay.
Yeah, last year we sent them some animals. So we sent them some basin babies. We sent them a blue tree monitor. We sent them some Shinosaurus. Something else. I don't know. I feel like there was more, but maybe that's what we sent them. I don't remember, but I know we sent them those things.
Yeah.
Maybe, probably some frogs too. I'm sure we breed a lot of frogs. So, but I mean, I know I'd love to go down there and check out that thing, but I know they have that 2-story exhibit that they've put, which I mean, I'm sure that helps. All that space definitely helps, you know?
Yeah, for sure. But I think, you know, it's really cool just considering that, you know, they're not removing animals from that enclosure, that they've kind of figured out their dynamics in there to where, you know, there could be a gravid female and the male will stay unharmed because he's 80 linear feet away that direction.
Right.
Or, you know?
Yeah, and we talked about taking up 2 exhibits and giving them like 30 feet of exhibit just to do that. But then I was like, I don't know, I wanted to do something different. So hopefully I didn't make a poor decision on that. But that was one of the things we talked about doing, was making them have like a giant exhibit and having like basically them each have their own exhibit and then have like a pass through to go from back and forth. But I don't know. Hopefully I made the right decision on that.
So in their enclosure with the pass through, is that a thing where they can see each other all the time, or is there a visual barrier?
It's a corners cage, so it's all mesh. So when they go back there, they'll be able to see each other. Now there are options for us to move them so they wouldn't be right next to each other back there, but we were going to put them right next to each other just to see how that went. Because right now she's never seen him where she's at now. So she's in a corners cage now still too. And I don't know if you know corners cages, but it's like that 1x1 mesh with the I think the mesh is all it might be like 1.5, and then it's all like aluminum tubing and it goes together and it's so I'd have to show you, but it's I know we use it for a lot of stuff. We use it for a lot of off exhibit animals. We use it for a lot of birds. We use it for sloth. We use it for a lot of things.
Yeah, I've probably seen that. So interesting. Well, I wish you guys the best of luck with that. It's cool to see all these croc monitors being produced these days, and it sounds like you might be the next one to throw your name in the bucket.
We'll see. Who knows? I know Dallas has done it a whole bunch of times, so I'm sure one of my old interns works there, so I'm sure I can get some tips from him.
Okay, very cool. So a species that you just kind of mentioned in passing a few minutes ago were the Shinosaurus. So you said you guys have done pretty well with those over there. I feel like historically that's been a species that's kind of had some lore around it of being like particularly difficult, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I've watched a lot of Burt Langworth videos on them and done a lot of stuff, and we do them really completely different than he did, and some we keep them simply kind of like he did, but we temperature parameters and everything else we do a little bit differently. But you know, we produced the male we used to breed now, and he was probably born in 2015.
Okay.
And I would say we've probably produced babies every year since then, at least, maybe. So we probably have a good 8 to 10 litters under our belt.
Wow.
So no, they breed pretty like clockwork. I don't know. They're one of my favorite lizards. They're definitely a really, really cool species. They're a little feisty. They'll definitely bite you here and there. We don't handle them a whole lot, but they definitely have no problem nipping you if they can. But they're just, I don't know, they're just a neat, they don't do a whole lot, but they're just a neat looking animal. And they're, I don't know, I find them very different. And I'm a huge fan of them. I really like them.
Yeah. So considering your success, where do you think that kind of narrative of Shinosaurus being finicky and strange, where do you think that kind of originated?
I don't know. I haven't had that experience. No, I would say they don't eat everything you think they're going to eat. So they're slower to eat. They don't eat like another lizard. They might take a week off, or they might eat one worm, or they might eat a whole bunch. Okay. So they're not going to go crazy over food, and they're not going to go running after stuff usually. But like we keep them really almost the same temperature year round. So they're like, I bet you the coldest they get is probably 74 for us.
Okay. I thought they were cold.
So we don't cool them down like other people say they get them down in the 50s and whatever else. We don't do that. Yeah. They're on exhibit, so they're where you can see them. They're in a room that the thermostat's always 78 to 82, depending on the time of the year, or 70 to 80. And so where they're at gets down to about 73, 74 at night, probably. And warms up during the day. I'd say they don't ever come out of the water, really, unless they're basking and they're gravid.
Wow.
They kind of live like right around the water, like in the water most of the time. And we offer them night crawlers and superworms 3 times a week. I'd say they probably eat maybe 1 to 2 times of those.
Okay.
Depending on the time of year. Yeah, and we just have it so they have a basking spot. They're in the breeding group is in a 4x2 by 4 foot tall enclosure. And we keep a trio in there. I actually pulled the male because the females had laid 4 years in a row, and we had a good amount of surplus. So I just so we could give them a break. But we just had 7 more babies born probably 2 months ago.
Wow.
Super cool little lizards. I mean, they just, I don't know, they're just really neat. They should be more popular. I think people were afraid of them as far as being so difficult as far as care goes. But the ones we keep off exhibit, we use rodent trays, those clear mouse bins
with like the metal tops.
Yeah, those. We use those without the top.
Okay.
We use those as a water bowl, and some of them we keep in like 20 longs, and we'll put like a couple inches of water and put some branches and put some half logs in there. And then some of them we'll do, like we've done like 40 breeders and put those in there, and they just can kind of go in and out of the water. And we just change the water 3 or 4 times a week, depending on how it, every day if it needs it, but at least 3 or 4 times a week. And then we just keep them like that, and they do really well. Like they're I think people try too hard, which I think is what people do with everything. I think they try too hard.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question is, considering you've had both zoo and private experience and the amount of time and species under your belt, I would say I'll let you expand on that. You think that there's just a lot of overthinking going on?
Yeah, because I adjust my wife always says I change my cages more than I change anything else. So like I would say I adjust how I care for stuff really based on what's easiest for me. Because I've found that if it's an arboreal snake, I give it places to climb. If it's something terrestrial, then I might give it floor space. If I'm going to use a tub, I like to use a tub with a lot of floor space. But like a lot of my tubs have rocks in them or have bedding in them or have whatever else. But I try to keep things simply, keep things so I can pay attention to them. Whatever, like the harder you make something, so people always want to make these elaborate setups. And if they're hard to take care of, then you don't take care of them as much because they're a pain in the neck. You do in the beginning because it's a novelty. Yeah. And after a while, you're not like, oh, I'm not watering that plant or I'm not doing whatever else. So I really try to make it so things are as simple as possible because I'm going to pay attention to it more. And then I'm going to be able to check the animal out, make sure the animal looks how I want it to be and do the things I need it to do. And then we do that there. And so like we may have like a zoo exhibit. We might have an exhibit that's all bioactive and has plants and has all branches and has whatever else and it's huge and have an animal in there. And we might have the male in the back. He might live on PVC with some mulch and maybe we don't really use fake plants. I try to use no fake plants if we can, unless it's like in some dump and fill water thing. But
yeah,
we'll do a super simple setup in the back, and we'll have UV on exhibit, and we may have UV or may not have UV. I don't know. I think there's people that say all kinds of things, but I don't know that I notice much of a difference. I wouldn't say that I really see a huge amount of difference in a lot of the animals when you pull them from one to the other. I notice a difference if the temperature's off, or if it's too dry, or if it's whatever else. But as long as you're providing what they need, like, you really need to keep it so it's easy for you, because that way it's satisfying, and then you do a better job. And so I would say that's really. And like, even if we're setting exhibits up, like, I always tell them, like, don't make it too hard to take care of.
Yeah.
Because if you make it too hard to take care of, then somebody's going to skip something, and they're going to slowly neglect some aspect of it. It may not be a big aspect of it, but they're going to slowly neglect some aspect of it because it's a pain in the neck. And so you've got to make it so it's doable, and that's what leads to success. And I think these animals, regardless of what everyone says, like, they're a simple being that they have needs and they have whatever else, but they really just need to be cared for well.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
As long as you're not cramping them up too much, and they have access to water, and they have somewhere they feel secure, and you can watch them. You might put something in a tub, and if it's cruising all the time, or if it's whatever, or a cage, if it's active all the time and not comfortable, then you're doing something wrong. And that could be in a tub, that could be in a cage, that could be in whatever else. And so whatever you can do to make it so the animal looks content and you're paying attention to it, then your observation skills, not what the internet tells you, is what tells you that they're doing well.
Yeah.
And so I had this conversation with a guy today. So, like, because I want their opinion. Like, I can write all the things down and say, check all these boxes, and you can be a robot all you want, and you can do all the things that the internet tells you or whatever else. But I want you to tell me what's wrong, or what's different, or what's new, or if you tried this bedding and you didn't like it, so you tried something else, or you mixed two beddings, or you did whatever else. So, like, I want you to use your opinion and your eyes and your common sense to figure out what's going well. And that's what's important, because that's how you learn. And you might screw up, and that's okay, as long as you don't kill anything. It's okay to screw up, because you're going to learn something. And in all honesty, if you screw up, chances are you're going to learn better, and you're going to do better next time a little bit. Figure it out, and then just make it better. And then you might find something out that I don't know. I learn stuff all the time. But yeah, that really, to me, ease is what makes the most sense with all this. And I think it's when you have your best success is whenever you make it easy, consistent, and you can tell what's going on, because then you know what's changing. And you can tell, if you keep animals for a long time, you can tell when they're happy. I don't want to say happy, but when they're content and when they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I guess if you were to take that aspect of, you're going to do what's best for you, and then therefore do best for the animals, do you have a preference one way or the other of a more simplistic or a more naturalistic setup?
I mean, I would love, there's times I've thought, like, I would love to get rid of everything in here and do everything in like 4x2x2s or something like that have like stacks like that. But some stuff, like, I had bloods and short tails in cages like that, and I don't think they liked it. They like it way better in like these. I have them in like 4-foot ARS racks. They do way better in that. They smear things less. They're moving around less. They're definitely way more content in that enclosure. So I think it's really, a lot of it's, like, I keep all my tree boas. So I have a collection of Amazon tree boas. They're all in cages. So they're all in cages. I haven't really done the whole PVC thing much at home. I have some, but I try to do crepe myrtle branches. I would like to put some plants in. I don't keep lights on them.
Okay.
I kind of find, like, part of me wouldn't mind having lights on them, but I think they prefer, like, if they want light, they can come to the front.
Sure.
I like black cages too, because I like it that they can have at work we use a lot of white cages so you can see everything, especially if we do a lot of tours.
Yeah.
But I personally like black cages for myself, because I think it gives them more security, which, I think what a snake wants is security. They don't want you. They want to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, all my Amazons, I'm looking at them, they have mulch on the bottom. They have a couple crisscross branches in there. And then I have kept plants in there, but I don't have any plants in there right now. And then I just have a water bowl. And sometimes, like actually the bottom one, I did go cut some branches out. So I have branches from outside with leaves on them in there. And some if I'm trying to like do something. So I might do that for a little bit, but it makes such a mess, so I don't always do it. But I've really made it so most everything else is in some sort of a rack because I just have found that they're a little bit better. Like I don't know, I feel like especially like high strung species, like they do better when there's not a lot going on right next to them.
Yeah.
So
okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
I like it all, but I personally, I don't know, it's species specific too.
Yeah, like me specifically, like I saw that with white lip python. So I had some white lips I had in some like 4x2x1s, and they were always
You can't walk by them.
Yeah, they're boom, spaz, tail wagging, and then as soon as I put them in like the big like ARS boa size tubs, instantly a much more calm, easygoing snake, just on that lack of they don't have that visual stimulation all the time.
Yeah, my white lips, I don't have them anymore, but I had white lips. I put them 6 feet off the ground in cages like that above my head. So when I walked around, they weren't looking at me.
Yeah.
Which sucked as far as taking care of them. But it was the only thing I could do to make it so they seemed comfortable when they were in here.
Yeah.
And so especially when you're feeding, like you feed them and then they're all rigid and trying to tag everything that's going by. So, you know, I think it really is just whatever works for you. And you've got to find what works for you. These animals are simple. I mean, certain species are definitely smarter than others. I think, you know, like a ball python has no problem being in a rack.
Sure.
If I had crebos, I'd probably do something different. We keep crebos in big enclosures at the zoo just because they move so much.
Okay.
Like we have crebos in like 8-foot enclosures just because they're always cruising. So that's not a snake I would keep in a rack like that just because they move so much. But I mean, I think it just depends on what it is, you know.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about the venomous snakes you guys have at the zoo, and kind of a little bit about venomous snake philosophy. So I guess for an overview, like what are some of the things that you guys are working with over there?
So we have Parviocula, Ethiopian mountain adders. We have rhino vipers. We have eyelash vipers. We have Cantil vipers, the bilineatus, the Mexican ones.
Okay.
We have red pygmies. We have Aruba Island rattlesnakes. We have speckleds. We have banded rock, timber, cottonmouth, king cobra. I think that's it. That's
not too shabby, I'll say.
No, it's a nice collection. No, I'm pretty sure. I think I named everything. So,
well, you named some pretty cool stuff. So you know, I think this is interesting because I do venomous on a private scale. You're doing it in a zoo field. What I guess so as someone in the zoological world, what's your opinion on private venomous herpetoculture?
I would say it scares me in some ways. You know, it's just one of those things because I don't know that everybody, like, if people do it the right way, I guess there's like we spend, and this is an issue too. So we spend $25,000-$30,000 every few years on antivenom. I have a USDA permit to bring it in, but then like right now I can't get antivitamin for antivitamin try because they're ran out. You know, so I have expired stuff, but I can't get anything that's up to date, which the expired stuff still has efficacy. But, you know, or like we need to renew our king cobra. And so the problem is those, when you're trying to get it, you can't get the information back to yourself. Like we're trying to get them to fill out a form so we can pay them through the city, but because they're in Thailand or wherever they're at, they don't answer. You know, there's a lot of trouble getting antivenom.
Okay.
So if you were to have an issue, relying on us or whoever else to save you, I think is an issue.
Yeah.
I think also I worry about like if you were to have them, like, I don't know that I'd be against some sort of regulation. I don't like banning anything, but I think, you know, if you live in a neighborhood and there's somebody next to you, I think it'd probably be a good idea to make sure you know that nothing can get out.
Yeah.
Just to make sure it's responsible. But I would say I'm not a big fan of anything being banned. I don't know that I have a problem with the permitting system though.
Sure.
and an inspection system, I think I'd be okay with that. But we do a lot of stuff to make it so we have, like, for us, like, our protocol is there's always 2 people. We wear a Kevlar apron, which is fairly easy to wear, but that way, as far as it kind of blocks your torso. We use hooks, we have tongs, we have whatever else. We made like a plexiglass shield to look into them if we need to first.
Okay.
So we can kind of, because the one thing about, like, for you have probably all, I think, if I remember, they're all like exoterras, or they're front opening glass enclosures. So you can always see your animal. Whereas us,
Yeah.
it's a gray PVC wall. When you open it up, you can't see what's there. So there are some difficulties with doing Venomous in a zoo compared to doing it in a private collection, because it's harder to see right off the bat. But I think as long as you're taking all of the precautions to do it, then I don't know that I could say that I would say I'm completely against it. I do feel like I don't know, I would never do it personally.
Okay.
And I don't know that I would say that the world should. Like, I would say, for me, the people I meet, I would say majority of them should not do it.
Sure.
But, there's people that do things. I think there's so many cool species that are non-venomous that I'm like, you could probably get your fix somehow or another. But
that's true.
They're also, like, if you're in Florida, you have to have 1,000 hours, you have to have whatever else. But I mean, you still see these people that let things go and do whatever else, and they make it bad for everybody. And people still get bit here and there and do all kinds of stuff just on accident. And, accidents happen, and you can do everything right and something still can go wrong. And so that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think there definitely is I would never put it out of the way that it could happen to you, kind of thing. So realizing that's the case, then I think that's something you should take into account.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm on the fence. I don't even know how I'd answer it all the way, but that would be like I definitely don't think the whole world should have it. I definitely think the Hamburgs of the world, I've been to those shows. It's crazy to me how that goes. I don't know that it seems like it should be right the way that it goes down.
Sure.
And I think definitely the people you see walking by, I can't believe that you don't hear about things happening every day.
Right. For the amount of mambas and cobras that get passed around at those shows.
I don't know how you don't hear more about it.
Yeah.
So people are obviously doing something correct, or killing them, or whatever. I don't know what they're doing.
Who dies first, the keeper or the snake? Maybe that's how some of those go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say if you do it and you're going to take responsibility for it, I think you need to have all the antivenom yourself. If you're going to expect to, like, so for us, we buy antivenom and we have to do the whole permitting process. Yeah. I also contact, like, to me, I contact the local Centeras and I get a breakdown of all of the crowfab they have in the area every 6 months. So I talk to the local pharmacist that works for Centera, and they give me a breakdown. So I know within 25 miles, I know that there's 113 vials of crowfab if we needed it.
Yeah.
So I know every hospital that has it, how many they have, whatever else. So if we were to have to use it, or somewhere to call and ask, I could tell them where all of those kind of things are. I'd almost be better if people just kept stuff that was covered by the local things, just because it makes more sense to me in some ways. Like I would be scared to death about a parviarcula bite, no matter what, if you had antivenom or not. Just those things, especially the way they move. And I think you said yours were chill. Ours are not chill. They do a weird spinning backwards, biting in the air, growling, whatever. They're crazy. Yeah. Not the first time you handle them, but when you're putting them back. You can pull them out and they're all right. You put them back, they're a lot. They're my favorite venomous snake. I love it, but they're a lot. Yeah,
they're you can tell that they're always one step away from a total freak out.
Yeah, but they're beautiful. I mean, it's like somebody outlined every scale in black marker. It doesn't get much better than that, I don't think.
No, it doesn't.
So I can see the allure, but again, I don't know that it's not from. I don't need it in this house, and I don't know that I don't know that 99.9% of the people that I've met need it in their house.
Yeah, well, this guy seems to have one in his house, and it apparently is sitting on his lap purring right now.
Oh, lovely.
No, that's my dad. If that is the case, you need to do a serious intervention with him. But so I guess then to somebody who does have these aspirations, what would you say would be like your pearls of wisdom of how to get started?
How to get started? I don't know that I would. I don't know that I'd be the one to tell you how to get started. The things I would tell you is just how to be safe.
Yeah.
So I would say take precautions with, I mean, I think different people, I think Cody or different people provide classes and provide things. And so I would say take as much opportunity to learn and don't be a cowboy and don't do whatever else silly, and make sure you do it well and make sure you're consistent and make sure that you always have somebody with you. And there are, they're not Kevlar, they are Kevlar, but you can get gloves, you can get aprons, you can get things to make it so your likelihood maybe goes down a little bit. I don't really like gloves in general because I feel like it affects my grips. But if you're doing different things, I don't know that I would ever do anything where I feel like they could bite the glove just because I don't even know that I would trust it.
Yeah.
But if you can get used to handling a hook with it on there and feel okay with the dexterity, then I think that might not be a bad idea. I think anything you can do to make it so you're comfortable and so you're safe would be what I would ask. And then I would also say, just know if you were to, whatever species you have, and I don't even know, like to me, like elapids, I don't even know. I don't know that anybody should have an elapid. I think that's just like, they're just too smart and
that's
jerky and twitchy. And, we shift our King Cobra mainly. We don't really handle her very much because we don't have a whole lot of space behind there. But we have in the past, and that snake moves so differently than any other snake. And it can move fast and it can move slow and it moves smooth. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like a scrub python where it's like you're looking at it and then all of a sudden it's like a foot closer and you're like, well, how the heck did that just happen? Like it's like they glide and you can just see them thinking, and you can see them. Like that's another one of those snakes should never be in a rack kind of thing. They're just smart and move around and climb and do all kinds of things. And so you got to pick what you can deal with and definitely don't do stuff that's going to kill you. That's what I say. Because if it kills you, you might not be like, well, you'll probably always have a chance to put it back, but someone could come help you and you could put them in danger as well.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah. I think make sure if you do have it, you need to build a protocol. And you need to make sure that somebody else knows what that is. That would be whoever's in contact whenever something goes wrong with you.
Yeah.
If that ever happened.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of some of those things that people don't really consider when when they want to do Venomous. They're like, look at how cool this is, and look at this guy on Instagram with this thing on his neck, and
Yeah, to me, all that's just crazy and stupid. But I mean, it's hard to beat the allure of them, and I think especially rattlesnakes, to me, like there's a lot of just beauty in them. Like it's hard to beat like a speckled rattlesnake, like that Paris, like it's hard to beat that white looking snake, or Arubas. To me, I really like Aruba Island rattlesnakes. But I mean, just rattlesnakes in general, I think are super cool. They're a little bit easier to hook in some ways than some of the other stuff. I mean, so I don't know that I'd say they're like starter, but they're I don't know that any of them are starter. I think a copperhead would be your starter if you do it. But I also don't need, if you need a starter snake, the venomous snake is not it.
That's a good point.
I think that's something you should put on the back burner and get some photos of.
Yeah.
Come visit a zoo. You can look at them all you want. Get a job there, then you can work with them there.
There you go. Yeah, that's definitely, because there's always kind of I'm always back and forth, and obviously I keep Venomous, but to me I feel like a majority, almost everything that I keep is like, I guess what you probably consider like a low bite risk type of snake, where most of the time that snake doesn't even necessarily need to leave the enclosure in order to be serviced, where you're not anywhere close to it because it's a rattlesnake that's 18 inches long and it's sitting over there. Yeah,
but making sure that you don't put your hands in there. You have tools that you can't. If you're going to service it without going in there, that you're not having your hands anywhere near it to go in.
Yeah, exactly.
We make long spoon. We have like long spoons, so if we're not gonna pull anything out, we have like a 4-foot spoon more or less that we can pull a poop out if we're not going to pull that animal out. So or we can water it from above, or we can do whatever to make it so we can do those things and eliminate some of the risk.
Yeah, I working for Rob Carmichael, there were a couple of the spoons, and I wish that was a commercial product, was the venomous snake spoon, because my God, was that thing a lifesaver.
Maybe talk to Robin about that, see if Redline can make one of those or something like that. They make all those other products.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. And I think if anyone were to do it, it would probably be them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned the Aruba Island rattlesnakes. Those are they hold a very special place in my heart, because when I was growing up, until I was about 11 or so, I lived across the street from Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And most of my childhood, and I think even still now, there's a big exhibit with a pair of Aruba Island rattlesnakes. What's it like working with those guys?
They're feisty.
Okay.
I think they're awesome looking, but they're one of those things, when you open up that door, chances are their mouth is going to come with it. Like, they're just very reactive. So they're just, anything that moves around, and they definitely strike at where they come to. They are not a retreat kind of animal. And granted, they're not like ours are. We have a well, supposed to be two boys, but it looks like it might be a pair. I haven't really sexed them to see, but
Okay.
They're in a 4x2x4 with a whole bunch of rock work and a whole bunch of whatever else. And when you open up the door, they both will come to the door.
Yeah.
And they have no problem if you're getting one out striking at they're just very striky. And they also move a lot. Like, I'd say they're one of the last things I train people on whenever we're training people on Venomous.
Okay.
Just because they're just way more striky, way more movie. So is that a word? But they're way more wiry.
Yeah.
So they're definitely they might flop off your hook. They're gonna kind of keep on cruising. They're gonna whatever else. They're not hard, but they take a little bit of getting used to if you're not used to it.
Yeah, definitely. So
I really, really like them.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. So that's what you mentioned about them being one of the last things you'll train someone on. What is your progression of venomous training with the species you have there?
So it depends on who you are. So, like, our basic protocol is that you if you come to us with like a full-on career of working with Venomous, then the simplest protocol is you watch us 6 times and then you participate with us 6 times, and then we kind of figure out what you can handle and what you can't. If you are a novice or just somebody that hasn't done it a lot, we start off with like Cantil, and we do like one species at a time, and then every time you do it, we'll add another one. So, like, I always start off with Cantil because it's just, I don't know, I just find it to be easier. But so we do Cantil, then we usually go into a water moccasin, and then we kind of go from there, and then we might go into, what have we been doing? I think we went into timber rattlesnake. Kind of go that way, and then I went to eyelash viper just to kind of change it up. But eyelash vipers are one of those things that they're not hard to do, but the big thing with them is that you don't pull too hard and fling the thing on yourself. So I think that's just learning how to hold the hook and not make it so that's a big part of my training, is not holding the hook like a hockey stick or like a baseball bat or like a golf club. Holding it, I like to tell people to hold it like a pencil, or hold it something where your hands are loose so you're not gripping, so you're not so tense, so you just are relaxing. And we have different size hooks for different things to make it easier, but we kind of go through the progression, basically go calmest to not calm to most wiry is basically how we kind of go.
That makes sense.
And just kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's.
But sometimes, I mean, we've had people take like up to a year or more before they do it on their own. So they might watch for a while, and then we do one, and then watch how they're doing, and do an off exhibit or on exhibit, because some of our exhibits are a little bit taller as far as they might be like stomach high or a little bit higher, that you're reaching over to get the animal out. So we'll do that until you get comfortable, and then so I try to work at everybody's pace. That's definitely not something I push. We're not trying to get you through fast. We're just going to go through it your own pace and figure it out and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that what you said about how to hold the hook, I think is really, really important. Because I mean, unless you're in an institution like that, I feel like you're not really, if you're teaching yourself how to use a snake hook, I don't think there's a whole lot of guidance as far as true, like, proper snake hook technique.
Yeah, there's none. You could watch some people online, but who knows if they're doing it right. Right. But I do know, like, Clyde Peelings and I'm pretty sure Cody teach a class. So I'm sure they would probably teach you a class that would tell you what to do.
Oh, for sure.
But I've been around people that hold that thing that it's like they're at a face-off. Like they're using that on the ground. Like they're I'm worried they're going to break the snake's back or neck or whatever else. And I'm just like, just relax. Just relax. You can always walk back. Don't put yourself in a bad spot. And you can always take a step back if you need to. Just chill out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. For like one thing that I tell people is like, just be as comfortable with that hook as possible. Like when I was younger, I'm like, I knew I wanted to at least try Venomous one day. So I'm with my carpet pythons and my white lips. And, I'm just like, I'm using the hook because I want to be so comfortable with it that it's like second nature to me to maneuver an animal with that thing.
Yeah. I had a guy, this was 6 years ago, when I told him, I was like, just do stuff with it. So he was like undoing latches with it and like moving locks from place to place. He just used it to do everything. Like he turned into like, he just tried to turn it into a wand, and he moved it around everything that he could with it. And really, I think that's the best idea is you just have to get used to the tool in your hand, and anything can be a bad tool and anything can be a good tool if you use it wrong or use it right. So if you just get comfortable with it and you can, have some finesse, then you'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And it's, for me, I really appreciate you giving your perspective on that, because it's not often that I feel like someone and I think this is one of the great things about you is that the level of crossover you have between the zoo field and the private sector. It's cool to get that perspective, but what do you see from that side as far as the relationship between the let's say public and private sector, so to speak, goes? And because historically, at least from the hobby side, the narrative is that there's a lot of contention and that the zoo world kind of looks down upon the private sector.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that do stupid stuff. So I mean, I think that
is true.
And so I would say as a zoo professional, unfortunately, I think the majority of people would want to find what you're doing wrong. They want to come in and they want to come to the zoo and they want to be like, hey, that animal looks sick, or that animal looks dead, or that animal needs water, or that animal has poop in it. And like, they want to find that you're doing something wrong. So people doing things incorrectly outside of a zoo make it so our job is harder. It's just unfortunately how it works.
Sure.
I have a lot of friends that are zoo employees that have my job or more, that have big collections or good sized collections at home.
Okay.
That do the same things as I do. I think there's probably more crossover than you think for a lot of things.
Good.
There's also a lot that are not. I'd say that I used to always say there's this whole scientific community, and then there's like the hands-on community, and very rarely do they like meet in the middle.
Sure.
And like it's those people that can be in the middle that are the good parts of it. So like there's people that know ranges of everything, but they don't know how to take care of something well. So
sure.
Really, I don't know that there's as much of a disconnect as people think there is. Okay. I mean, I would say out of the 4 keepers I have, actually all 4 of them keep animals at home. But a lot of times that's one of the questions I ask in an interview is like, do you keep any animals at home? Like, I prefer if you do, because at least then I know you like eat, sleep, and drink it. It's going to be something you're doing. There's also people always think that like zoos have these collections of animals and they don't want anything to go out to the private sector and they want to let it go to extinction and whatever else. And really a big part of being in a zoo is that you are responsible for these animals, and you're also responsible to AZA, you're responsible to USDA, you're responsible to your government, whatever you work for, you're responsible to all these things. And so if anything is not on the up and up, it affects you. It can affect your funding, it can affect your job, it can affect being open, it can affect all those things. And so, people are always like, oh, why don't you send these Fiji iguanas out to everybody? Well, the Fiji iguanas are all owned by the Fiji government. So the Fiji government owns those animals, and so they tell people at San Diego who manage that program what they can do with them, more or less.
Okay.
She probably tells, I don't know, she's the woman that is in charge of that is super smart and super qualified. She probably tells them what she thinks they do, because super smart. But it's not so cut and dry. Like, you can't just say this is what you want to do and this is how you do it. And so part of what she's told me in the past is like, they don't like the fact that people exploit their animals. And so they're not happy with the Canadian market or the European market with that. And so that's probably part of why they're not in the US, because whatever is going on as far as laws with that. But, we keep a lot of records. Everything is like, I could tell you the lineage to grandparents, great-grandparents, of almost any animal we have in the zoo.
Yeah.
And so if I have an animal on loan from somebody, or if we send something, I have to keep track of all that stuff. And people in private sector, I mean, I'm guilty of it here, we don't keep records like we do there. So as far as if anybody were to say, where did this come from? Where do you have it? Like, I could tell you most of the things, but like, I could tell you 40 years on some of these things, where they came from, who they were with, what they did. And so that's why you can't just send stuff out to anybody, because Joe Schmo is never going to fill all that paperwork out, and they're never going to get back to you, and they're never going to respond. And that animal's going to go lost to follow up, which is a thing, and like a stud book or whatever else. So like, that animal's just going to go away. You're going to lose all its bloodline. And, and the goal of like these AZA programs, which there aren't a million of them, but is to figure out how to have genetic diversity for 100 years. Now, some of them succeed, some of them don't. But so when they're doing a plan and you're doing all these programs, you are looking to see what can you do to have a good quality population that's going to last for 100 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know any keepers that are friends of yours that are probably worried about that at all. And so, and
probably some green tree python keepers, and myself with scrub pythons. Otherwise, no, probably not a whole lot.
And so, and so it just depends, it's just there. And do they need it all the way? I don't know. I'm sure there's certain populations that don't need that at all.
Sure.
But there's certain populations that do. And so I think it's just a different organization. It's just a different thing. And so the general public doesn't put as much effort into that, because they just figure they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, definitely. I get that. So what would be like a couple of things that you wish the private sector would adapt from the zoo field that you think would be greatly beneficial to not only the animals and how we keep, but then also our the perception of the reptile hobby?
That's a very difficult question. I don't know that I know the answer to that.
I don't think there's a wrong answer necessarily.
Yeah, I don't even know if I know what the right answer is. What would I like to see? I like to see people take responsibility. I think the world today, people don't take responsibility for whatever it is that they do. But
sure.
I think if you screw up and you do something wrong, I think you should own it.
Yeah.
We're all learning. I think people are just definitely critical of each other, but I think that happens in a zoo, that happens in wherever else. I think there's a lot of things we could learn from each other that if we work together a little bit more in a private, and there are groups that do, and there are groups that don't. I think there's so many people just trying to get to the top.
Yeah.
In the private world, that I don't know if they put the quality of care as high as they could.
Sure.
It's more about just kind of like pumping it out. Now, I make ball python clutches, I make corn snake clutches, I make whatever else for myself. So
yeah,
I'm not saying that I'm any better than anybody else as far as that kind of thing goes, but I think people also need to realize what they're capable of. And like we do things with the staff, and you need to figure out what it is that you can take care of yourself. And I have to tweak this myself every few years, be like, I have too much stuff now. I can't take care of it right. I need to, what is the right animals that you can take care of yourself well?
Sure.
And that's part of why, like I said earlier, where like I keep things simply at home, because if you're going to keep a collection and your goal is to make a little bit of money and your goal is to do whatever else, and if I didn't make $1, I'd probably still have a room full of snakes. But my goal is to make some money with it, and my goal is to have cool stuff that I like. And I mean, like we breed I breed redfoot tortoises, and I give all the babies away. Just to people that want them. I have projects that I do stuff like that I don't care if I make $1 on, but if people come over and they see our tortoises and they're like, oh, those are cool, I'm like, if you want one, I'll give you one, kind of thing. And so I think stuff like that is nice. It's like it just promotes people having cool stuff. And so I think people really, I don't know if this is zoo related or not, but just people need to be nice to each other, and they need to be able to like depend on each other and use each other for information. You like Chad Holker and I texted I don't know, last few days about like how you label stuff and how you know, are you doing QR codes? Are you doing business card, index cards, or what? Sticky notes? Are you doing whatever else? And like, I have sticky notes on stuff now because my children want to name everything all of a sudden. So now I have weird names on the front of things. But you know, so I try to make it so I have an index card. I try to make it so things are simple. If I had a QR code and I was going through a system like that, to me, there's no way I would ever keep up with that. So like, I want stuff that's simple, that whatever else. And so, you know, working together and realizing, I mean, he and I have been friends for 30 years now or whatever else. And we still ask each other questions probably every day, you know? And so I think finding people that you can do stuff like that with, it's like our conversation before this, which this is the same thing, but we probably could have talked for 3 hours just about whatever we were talking about for that 15 minutes before we even start. So, you know, finding people that you're like-minded and that you respect and that you think, you know, can, I don't say help you, but have similar interests, and you can find what they do well and what you do well, and meet somewhere in the middle. That's what I think is what we should do more of.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer, and I think that's awesome. Something that people really should take to heart. Before we get off the zoo topic, I am curious, a little bit of a diversion from reptiles. When you were doing the work with the mammals, what was the learning curve like with the interaction with those? Because I feel like I don't have a whole lot of mammal experience, but like giraffes and rhinos and shit, I'm like, I don't even know where I'd start. You know?
Yeah, I mean, so there's just a lot of labor involved in that stuff. So that's really like you're shifting, and those animals are different, and giraffe are different than rhinos, which are different than elephants. You know, the learning curve for doing an elephant is, you know, it's kind of venomous like, or kind of what it might take you a year or more before you're asking that elephant to do anything on your own and to get it to move over so you can clean something, or you might be training. But as far as, I would say 2 years in, you're probably just figuring it out. As far as the giraffe go, it's a prey animal. They're kind of, I don't want to say dumb, but they're just flighty. They make up for it, maybe pretty, but they're definitely like one of those things that you just have to have a lot of patience, and you have to be able to, you know, use the people around you that know more than you. And, you know, and really the biggest thing you can do with any animal in general is just have common sense and not be overly excited. So be calm, know when to step back and take a break yourself. You can do timeouts for yourself, for them, for whatever else, and just pay attention to what they're doing, and really be consistent, and make sure you pay them when they're supposed to be paid and don't pay them when they're not. And I'd say that's the biggest thing with learning that. And so really the shifting part of that, you're going to be doing that with somebody else. So it's going to take you a while, but there is a learning curve. And if you're doing training, that could take, especially when you get into like the higher order mammals, like if you're doing elephants or great apes, or I did some mandrill baboons, which I was like, it was crazy how fast those things learn.
Damn.
You know, but like taking care of a crocodile, like we have a Siamese crocodile, and that thing learns faster than most mammals. Like, it's crazy what you could teach those things.
Yeah.
Quick. We do like a 2-tap system for targeting, and get her to go on land. We can get her to go over here. We can touch her in the back. We can do all kinds of stuff. And she learned it real fast. But really just realizing that the curve is that you're going to be doing a lot of labor, all that mammal stuff, unless it's cats. Cats aren't as much labor. They're more stinky hosing. But if you're doing any hoof stock, it's a lot of raking, a lot of shoveling. I mean, if you get into pachyderms in any way, like rhinos and elephants, it's just a lot of pitchforking and shoveling and whatever else. So it'll bulk you up, hurt your back. It'll make you have back problems, make you go to the chiropractor. I always say I went to the chiropractor for a long time, and then one day he was like, "What did you do? You're doing so much better." And I was like, "I don't work in Africa anymore. And I work in the reptile department." He's like, "That was the best thing you ever did for yourself." And I was like, I mean, but talk about traps and talk about like shoulders, like you're carrying 10 cubic foot wheelbarrows around all day long, just like you're strong.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, to me, if you want to meet people that do a hard work, like if you meet like an elephant keeper or somebody like that, they're going to be the hardest working person you know, probably. Well, because everything they do is heavy, mentally, physically. They're going to be fairly smart. They're going to figure things out. They're just going to be a good quality employee, because you can't last if you're not.
Yeah, I figure you probably can't. That makes sense to me. That if you're a weak-minded individual and you want to be shoveling rhino shit all day, you probably won't last too long.
Yeah, but I can remember, I mean, I was 24 when I started there. And so I can remember the first day I went in there, the first thing I did was I helped with the rhinos, and I was shoveling, and we had these big trash cans, and I picked it up, and I was like, oh my God, I'm shoveling shit. Then I was like, I'm shoveling rhino shit. And I was like, it was like so exciting. I was like, this is so weird that like I was excited, but it was exciting. You know, it was a super cool thing to do. And, you know, I got to be close, and I got to do, you know, I didn't get to do much with them at that point in time, but shortly after I started to learn things. And so just the experience of doing it and the hard work that it takes to do it, you know, you got to work hard. And if you work hard, then there's benefits, and those benefits are internal for the most part. But, you know, it's good to have stuff that you work for and you care about. I feel like that's getting harder and harder sometimes these days. And I feel like I'm getting older thinking about stuff like that, but it is the employee today is not the employee of yesteryear.
Yeah, absolutely. That's without a question. That's the truth.
It's a shame, but it is what it
is. Yeah. So in all of your zoo years, what was like one or two, like the most intimidating animals you worked with, where you're like, oh shit, I gotta take care of the blank today?
I've never had a day where I was like, I don't want to go to work. I've never had a day where I was like, okay. The only times I've ever had, we had to do some Red River hog things one time. So we had 3 male Red River hogs, and we had not trained them to shift yet, or not to shift, but to go into a squeeze cage. And we needed to do whatever testing. I think the vet had to do something with them. So we had to go in with them and basically push them against a wall so the vet could look at them. And say it's a 150-pound pig. And they started running at us and like jumping, mouth open, like Beetlejuice when they pull their head open. Like their mouths are as big as your body. It's crazy. And they're coming at you. And then we did one and got it all. And like, I remember I had it up against the wall, and its face was right next to me. And we're like, you're trying not to be rough, but you're definitely holding it in place.
Yeah.
And we were done with it. And then we're like, and he's like, okay, now I have to do the next one. You're like, damn, I got to do that again. And so like, I enjoy all of that stuff. Like I like going and catching stuff. I'm built for holding things. You know, I'm good at that part of thing, at that kind of thing. So I really do enjoy it, but that was definitely one where I was like, do I really have to do this again? The second hairiest experience, I've had a few hairy experience, but the ones that like stand out to me that we could talk about probably would be, we did a kudu one time. So big, giant spiral horned antelope that had these funky hooves. And so we had same animal twice. So we had knocked him down in the yard, so tranquilized him, put him down in the yard, and we're trimming his feet. And then all of a sudden he got up. And wherever I was on one side of the tree and everybody else was on the other side. So they were all able to get out, and I was still in the yard. And so he just chased me around a tree for a little bit. And so luckily I weathered the storm and then was able to get out. But it was like one of those things where I was like, crap, I wasn't expecting that. And that same animal, we had actually done the same thing and had him we had him knocked out, and we're taking him to another building because he was going to go to another area. And the vet and I were in the back of a trailer, and he started to wake up. And we were like, this locks from the outside. Like, we're stuck. So we were trying to get people to stop whatever else, and they couldn't hear us all the way. We would do that differently today because obviously that experience. But we probably wouldn't be in the back with them actually anymore. That was 20 years ago. So that was just, we just did things differently. He didn't wake up all the way, but he definitely started moving, and we were just like, what are we going to do? We're in this trailer. Yeah. There's nowhere to go, and this thing's 7 feet tall, and 3 feet at the top is horn, you know, and so we were like, crap. But luckily he didn't never get up all the way. He just moved and scared the crap out of us. So those are like the two that are in my head. Like if I was ever to tell a story, those are the two, I guess, 3 freakiest stories of, I got to do some elephant stuff where elephants spun and I was in there and you had to get out. But like, yeah, you kind of expect those and you can deal with that.
Yeah, I would imagine an animal waking up that you previously thought was properly tranquilized would be startling, to say the least.
Yeah, well, they metabolize things so much differently than you or I. And so what it takes, like we had a Grant's gazelle, it's like a 119-pound animal. And what it takes to get that animal to go to sleep for a little bit would kill you or I like 3 times. You know, they're just wired differently. They can handle drugs differently. And so sometimes they're in there and they're doing whatever else, and somebody drops something or a loud noise, just that wakes them up. That's what people always think, that the animal gets out, and luckily we haven't had that too much. But the animal gets out or whatever else, you can just dart them. But you can't really dart them because it takes them 10 minutes to go down, and then sometimes you have to double or triple dose them depending on what it is.
Yeah.
And how hyped up they are. Now that's not all the time, but vets know what they're doing as far as that kind of thing. And some vets are better at than others, but you definitely it's just not so easy, so that's why people have gun teams, response teams, whatever else for stuff like that. You can't just, and sometimes when you dart them, they just get pissed, and so then they're worse. And so you might have turned a good and all right situation into a real bad situation.
Oh my gosh.
So it's, you have to go with the flow on those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess go with the flow while the large angry mammal is charging at you. That makes sense.
Yeah. And the big thing you need to do is you need to do everything you can to limit all of those human mistakes that we make, because anything that happens is the problem with the keeper. And all it is you're just a person. If you work in a restaurant, you drop a plate, you miss one lock in a zoo, you could let something out. That's why we have 2 people to check locks in certain animals and whatever else. There's a lot of redundancy that we do to make it so people have less chance of making a big screw up.
Yeah.
Because again, what's acceptable in some other job is not acceptable in ours.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So last thing before we get off the zoo topic, so what are like a couple goals of yours in the zoo field? Species you want to experience, things you want to do, like, before you decide to hang the hat up, what are some things you'd like to check off that list?
And honestly, I've really gotten to do almost everything that I ever wanted to do. So I would say the only thing I need to add is Komodo, and then I don't even know there's anything else I need to add. If I could add Komodo to our collection, I think I could say that I completed everything I ever wanted to do as far as what we're doing. We have a great collection. I have been lucky to be able to pick out pretty much all of it. I love every aspect of it. And so there's I have Schneider skinks. I have stuff like I have little things that remind me of my youth and whatever else that are mixed in with other stuff. And, I'd say I don't have them. The zoo has them. But, so we have all those things. So I try to make it so I have fixed that along the way. I just keep on pushing. Now there's not, we just got a green anaconda a couple weeks ago. I've been pushing for a green anaconda for years, and I kept on getting told no and no and no. And I just finally wore our director down where he said, okay. So we had to modify exhibit. We had to have somebody come in and jackhammer it out so we could make a bigger pool. So I'm just persistent. I don't really give up as far as that kind of thing goes. And I just keep on pushing, and I try to find, try to be like, hey, look how good we did with this. Can we take over something else? And again, it's one of those things where I might overwhelm the staff or I might overwhelm everybody around, but it makes it so we get to keep on doing stuff. And that's what keeps it exciting.
Yeah.
So, but I think other than that, I don't know that I really would like to build the Chinese alligator exhibit too. That's something else I would like to add.
Yeah.
And okay. So say you got me on a topic now. So
all right, let's go.
And brown tortoises. I'd like to figure out a way to do Chinese alligators and brown tortoises outside, have them live outside the majority of the year here. So both of them are cold tolerant to a degree. So I would like to surround our tiger area with those species is what I'd like to do. I've been told no on both of those, but again, I keep on trying. So you never know. One of these days it'll happen. I feel like those in Komodo would be all the things that I really push for, and I think I'd be perfectly content with everything I've done if that was the case.
All right. Well, that's pretty awesome. So let's switch gears to your collection side.
Okay.
How did that kind of evolve alongside your career as everything, as the years went by?
How did it evolve? I don't know. I mean, I've been keeping reptiles since before my career.
Yeah.
So my first lizards were leopard geckos, and then once I got there, it took me a long time to convince my parents to let me have any lizard in the house. And then once I got a little bit of a foothold, I had water dragons, savanna monitor, green iguana, Chilean dwarf tegus, which I wish I could eat. That's a lizard I would have again. And then the first snakes I ever got were carpet pythons. So I was able to get coastal carpet pythons and green tree pythons when I was a teenager in my mom's house and my parents' house. And the first snakes I ever bred were carpet pythons. So, I just kind of went from there, and then the collection evolved. And it's kind of funny to think of the collection I had at that point. When I moved out, I was 19, and I had carpet pythons, and I had green tree pythons, and I had a couple other things, and I had Borneo short tails at some point in time, and they're not right when I moved out, but it was always a collection like that. Like I was an anti-ball python guy at that point in time. So, but that's, I don't know, look at me now. I've got a whole bunch of ball pythons, but just working in a pet store, it was a different time for ball pythons then. It was they were a different snake than they are today. So, and then I went through a rosy boa phase, and I went through an Amazon tree boa phase for probably 10 years or more. I bred Amazon tree boas for like 10 years in a row. And I just had a whole bunch of like Indo-Australian pythons and tree boas, and then I had some Dumerals boas and stuff like that. And I did bearded dragons along the way. And then I kind of circled around. And then I got jungle carpets in there somewhere in the mix too. And I had jungle carpets pretty much my whole life up until this past year. I don't have any carpet pythons at all right now.
Okay.
But Lyaesis have been kind of a big thing for me. I had some probably in the early 2000s, I would say, maybe late 90s. I don't even know, somewhere in there. And I had them for a little bit, and then I got rid of them. Actually, I had Savus when I was like 19 because I lived in that house. So I don't even think about that. So I bought Savus when I was like 19 or 20. And we had babies that first year. We had them like wild caught, like first year came but then, and then I just have been like, I feel like I recycled everything. And then for the last probably, how long have I had those? For the last probably 14 years, 10, 14 years, I don't know, somewhere in there. It's been mainly like I've had ball pythons going in the collection since probably like 2003. Okay. 2002, 2003. But I didn't have a whole lot. I've definitely have more now than I have had. But Lyaesis have been a part that I don't ever really get rid of. And the Curtis complex, which I guess is not a complex anymore. But short tails, Borneos have been something I've had since like 99. I had those for a long time. Now I have blacks, and I have a pair of reds, and I've had different stuff. I had some albino reds a long time ago, and they were expensive until I bred them. They were expensive when I bought them, and then not expensive when I bred them. So yeah, it's just kind of evolved. And I mean, and some colubrids have been in and out. I did snoring gophers for a long time. I did Lineaticolus, the Mexican lion pine. And now I keep like a collection of corn snakes. I've got some albino Hondurans. I've got some black and white cow kings, stuff like that. I don't know. I just kind of keep whatever I like. If I find something that I like, I'll try to get it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. How do you mentally, emotionally balance work with animals all day, come home to work with animals at night?
I don't even know how I do that sometimes. My son is very into all this now. So if he sees me coming into the snake room, he is with me. And awesome. He wants to, and especially if he can find something that has a dry, like if there's somebody that has some shed on it, he wants to help clean it. He's like a little monkey. He wants to help shed everything. But luckily I don't have very much of that, but for whatever reason, I have one banana enchi ball that like always goes through a bad shed. I don't know why, but he like cleans that thing up a lot. So I'd say that's like his snake. But like, it's kind of one of those things. I come home, I have a little bit of downtime. I'm coaching his T-ball team now. I'm doing whatever else. So we do family time. I'll come back here with him if he wants to come back here. And then when everybody goes to bed, I'll come back here again. Okay. And so then it's kind of like, and I can kind of get lost in here, in all honesty. So my wife will go. If my wife had it up to her, she'd probably go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. But I'll go watch TV with her till 10 or whatever, so she goes to sleep. And then I'll come back here, and then some days I'm back here till midnight. Some days I'm back here. If I'm feeding, I might be back here till 2. And then I get up at 6, and then I go to work, and then I do the whole thing all over again. So I'd say my sleep is not the best in the world, but like even this morning, I mean, I get up early. I get up before my alarm. which is odd, but like I'm ready to go. And again, I don't like, I've been going to work early because I have so much stuff to do. I don't have a time. They're all asleep, so it's not like I can hang out with the family, and I can't come. And I don't really want to come in here and do a lot of stuff if they're sleeping in the morning because I might wake somebody up. So I come check on everybody, but I don't really do a whole lot of work. I may change a water or something like that, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of obsessed with it. I guess it's just one of those things that, it helps pay our bills. It helped us get a new deck. It helped us renovate my daughter's room. It helped us put a bathroom on it. It's helped things around. So there's definitely a benefit to it. And even the benefit of just me liking it. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So in the mix there was the Liasis. I feel like that's one of the things you're best known for. What's your current group of Liasis that you're working with?
So I have a trio of olives and a trio of Timor Maclots and some Savus. That's all I have now. Yeah, that's all I have now. So I had some Rhody Maclots, and I had an issue with one of those that didn't work out so well. So I think that's a pretty good group. I actually wouldn't mind adding some more Maclots a little bit, just because people contact me so often for them. And it's one of those things, like, there are more people that have them now. Like, I know, like, Mike Curtin makes them, and there's a couple other people that make them. But, like, it's just one of those things you don't see a whole lot of, and I really do like them. They eat so well. I mean, they're feisty when they're little, but I'm okay with that. And they're just such a cool animal. They probably are the thing. I would have always said before that olives were my favorite thing, but I think Maclots have turned into my favorite thing.
All right.
I would like to do the Duns thing. I have not done the Duns Python part yet.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what those are like.
They're badass. I love them.
Do you have some?
Not anymore. I used to have some.
Okay.
So, but yeah, they're like mini olive pythons to me.
Yeah, Ryan's and the last one I did with MJ, Ryan was like, "You need to get some Duns Pythons." I definitely would agree with that. So I need to make that happen. I just like that. And it's just a cool, like, it's one of those things that now I have them all in racks, so they're all in like the glass fronted ARS rack, so they could see out and whatever else. But like, they're always looking at you when you kind of come. They check you out. I just have found they, like, for me, again, I did them in vision cages and did them whatever else, and just I found the way that they were moving, I can do basically the same thing in those racks. Okay. I can give them, like, they were sitting on top of tubs and whatever else. I can give them tubs they can sit on top of in there. They can go in the tubs, they can hide, they can whatever else. There's actually, if you look at an adult Maclots in one of those tubs, it's like the tub is humongous for them.
Speaking of which, Lisa wants to know how big your Macs are.
I would say 6, 7 feet. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I don't know. One laid. The female I've had forever. The female that I have that's like 14 years old, she laid 13 eggs, and the female that I have that's like 6 years old laid 16 eggs. So okay. I mean, they're not huge snakes, but they're not bad. I mean, they can all eat a jumbo rat. Like, they can all eat that. Okay. I don't ever weigh anything. I don't weigh anything at home at all. So I just go by rat size. They can eat a jumbo rat, and they're pretty good with that. But like, if you saw them in these tubs, they don't take up a whole lot of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a lot of room for them to cruise, and so that way they can sit in the tub if they want to. They can go in the Rubbermaid if they want to. They can sit on top of it. They can kind of cruise around. And they do well, and it's easy. Like, it's easy to take care of. So again, that's what I found is easiest.
Yeah. Awesome. So your olive pythons, you've had quite the history of breeding those snakes, correct?
Yeah, I've had 7 clutches of them, and I don't know, looking at her today, she just went into a shed, and she's not trying to eat me, and she's basking, so I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, but I would not be surprised if she is in a pre-lay shed right now. I don't have an ultrasound. I've never ultrasound anything, but she definitely has that feel. She has that look, and she's round, and so I didn't palpate her too much, but I did mess with her a little bit today. I cleaned her out and changed her water and whatever else, and I was like, you look different than you did last week. So I feel like something's happening there. So we'll see.
Cool. So how do you do it? What's your trick to being the olive whisperer?
My trick was that I waited a long time, and they screwed me over to like for 7 years. Well, they were like 7 before they had their first clutch, and then they went 7 years in a row.
Not bad.
So I don't feed them heavy. Like I feed them heavy in the fall, but other than that, they might eat a meal monthly.
Okay.
Which makes it so they always want to eat you. So it has its pluses and minuses. So they're always hungry, but I keep them kind of like if you were to see them, they're not anywhere near as big as you think they would be. I think everybody keeps their olives too big.
Okay.
I would say they're probably like 9 feet. I mean, they're not small.
Sure.
But I don't know, I'd say they're like 9 feet, and they're probably like that big around. I can never figure out which way I need to look at this thing like that. They can eat, like my female eats like two jumbo rats at a time if I'm feeding her heavy like that.
Okay.
But that's a lot of a meal for her if she eats that. But so what I do is I just feed them sparingly throughout the year, and then start around like around September, around Memorial, whatever, Labor Day, whatever day it is. From there till like Thanksgiving, I feed them fairly heavy. Okay. And then I put them together after that. I put them together usually around the first of the year. And then if I see some copulation, and then in February sometimes I'll try to get a meal or two in her. This year, for whatever reason, I just was slack and life was busy, and so I didn't get that meal into her until March sometime. Mm-hmm. So then I'll do like a big meal at that point in time, and that seems to be the thing that kicks them into gear. And so that's just kind of how I did it. I think I wrote an article. I did write an article. I think I wrote it out in there how I did whatever. But okay. But that's kind of what I do. I just kind of do, and that's what I do with a lot of stuff. Is I'll feed heavy like that, and then I'll do I'll kind of, I don't want to say forget about them, but I'll put them together and kind of leave them alone and just benign neglect kind of thing, and let them do their own thing, and then come back, and then I'll start feeding them again just for a little bit, and then if they take it, you can kind of like if they are in that ravenous stage, it seems like that's the thing that kicks them into gear and makes it so it happens. Okay, and so that's what I've done with it's what I've done with a lot of stuff. That's what I do with emeralds at work. We've had very good success with breeding Amazon basin emeralds at the zoo, and that's what I do there. Is we'll take a while and feed them, and then kind of give them a little bit of break, and then feed them heavy and just feed them until they stop. Like you can tell they move a different way. They're basking differently than they were. You can see something's changing. Okay. And then whenever I see that activity change, then I just feed them and then kind of wait. Yeah. So like with your olives, when you say you're feeding heavier, is like a frequency thing or like size of prey or number of items? Like what? The size is almost always the same unless I have extra rats. So the size is almost always those jumbo rats. Okay. So I might, but like now I'll do like once a month, maybe. Sometimes I'll even go longer. Yeah. And then I'll feed like every 10 days. Okay. Sometimes every week. It really depends on how life is going. Like I really would say I'm not the greatest as far as schedule stuff, because if we have a lot of kids stuff going on or we have a lot of family stuff going on, then I put the snakes second. I mean, sure. They're all fed and watered. They're all watered, whatever else. But as far as food goes, and it's funny because I'll have a freezer full of rats and I'll be like, I haven't fed in 3 weeks. And I'll be like, there's food here. I just don't do it, so it's kind of one of those things. That's and that's what happened not long ago too. I was talking to it might've been MJ and them when I was talking to them, and I was like, I just haven't fed them. And then I was like, oh crap, I should go pull some food tonight. And so it was like, I just went and pulled food and then I fed them the next day, which I probably could do again now just for some of the stuff. And so I think for me, it's really not try. I think I try less. I think that's part of what I do that works well for me is that I watch them and I'll be like, I need to do something different here, but I'm not on top of them every day, all day. I'm kind of like letting them do their thing and let them have some time to themselves, and then, put them together for a little bit and leave them alone, and then, pay attention after that. And so really, I don't, because I always find when people are trying so hard, they're tweaking things. They're always changing something. Whereas like they're good, like they know what to do. As long as the parameters are right, so as long as your room is doing whatever it's supposed to do or whatever they're used to, you can add food at different times or make sure they have water. Like I think letting them run out of water is what can cause you problems. So I try to never let that happen.
Yeah.
Which I've actually switched a lot of things over. Now I'm trying to do the whole disposable water bowl thingy. I'm not disposing of them, but I'm cleaning them out that way just differently rather than having ceramic. I've had ceramic bowls forever, and I'm kind of using them as water cup holders to try to see if I can. I don't know. People say that's better, so I'm going to give it a shot.
Yeah, I do that. I just find it a lot more convenient, especially with a volume of animals. But
yeah, well, and also like if somebody poops, I'm not cleaning it. I can just throw it away, and then if it's just something clean, I can. If it's just something like that's been sitting there, I can use Clorox wipes, wipe it out, let it dry, peroxide it if I want to or whatever, and then rinse it and then go again.
Yeah. Lisa wants to know what the hottest temps you give your females while they're gravid.
I think I had them set 87.
Okay.
88.2 is what they're at.
Okay. Pretty standard.
So I will say that years ago, and when the first year I did olives, I had them in a vision cage, and I had like those big, I don't know who made them. They were like big hide boxes that they could move around. And so the female would actually move the hide box around so she could bask differently, which I thought was the coolest and craziest thing. But she moved it around so much that she ended up burning herself a couple times. She would move it close to the light.
Yeah.
And so then I didn't even temp gun it, but I would imagine she must have been getting 100+ degrees. After the whole burn thing made it so I didn't really give her that option to do the same thing after that. And so now they have a spot they can just go sit on. She can move the mulch out of the way and sit on her. Actually, I have them on aspen. But so she can move the aspen away and get right on the bottom if she wants. But I make it so that way I don't use the lights on them anymore just because of that, which I don't think is a bad thing. If I were to do cages like that again, I probably would do that. But I just found it harder to deal with them in some of those aspects.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. I also want to ask you about the your scrub python breeding of a few years ago, because you don't have any. Do you have any scrubs currently?
I don't have any scrubs currently.
Okay.
Sometimes these bar necks. I think I actually contacted you not long ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes these bar necks make it so I'm like, or I watched that Dan Mallory video the other day and see that thing, and I'm like, holy crap, I could use that. I don't know what I wanted. I don't know. I like bar necks. I don't know if I need anything that big at this time in my life. I feel like the pattern Nauta would be probably the thing that I would want to get at this point if I were to get anything else.
Yeah.
I really have always liked those. I actually have the old days of you hear people talk about the self-addressed stamped envelope. I don't know where it is, but I have a picture of someone sent me of a pattern Nauta from like the 90s in a 55-gallon aquarium outside. That I'm always like, that snake was the one that I really liked. And so I don't know. I don't know if I need them or not, but that's something that I do think about because it is such a cool, smart species, but they definitely are another one of those things. It's like, you need to be paying attention.
Yeah. That you do.
Yeah.
So,
and I have a wall full of Lyasis and short tails. So I'm already paying attention enough. So part of it, maybe that's what I need to do.
Yeah. Fair enough. So you had your clutch in 2020?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know that I know that answer. I feel like it was during COVID. So yeah, probably. I have no idea. Yeah, probably something like that.
So for those who are unaware, it was the Maruki clutch you had back in 2020. What was the origin of those animals, the adults?
So crazy origin. So the female was an animal that was sold by a local pet store that I got a call from animal control. Do you know the story already?
No.
Okay. I got a call from animal control saying that there was a house that had been abandoned and that there was this big brown snake that was sitting on top of a pile of debris in the backyard. And they wanted to know if I wanted it because I knew one of the guys that worked there.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I'll help you, whatever, get it. And so I kept on going and trying to get it. And every time they'd go there, it would go into the pile of debris. And so then one of the guys was a snake guy and he realized that he needed to go out there early. So he went out there early when it was sort of basking. And it ended up being like this, 8-foot Merauke female that was beautiful.
Wow.
And had not long before that been sold by this pet store that had eaten a cat or a something big in it. I don't know, whatever it was, it came to me and it had this bulge. So I get the snake, and so the animal control donated it to me, and they donated it as brown snake. Like I had this whole thing. I had to fill out this paperwork, but it was like they donated a brown snake to me. So I found that store because I knew the guys, and they had a male that they had gotten at the same time, and so I acquired that male as well. And so I had them, and I had them for probably 5 years or so before I got a clutch out of them. But I had them for a while, and it was one of those things that I was like, I don't even know if I was going to keep it, but then I had it, and I was like, man, these things are awesome. I love them. So like I kept them, and it was kind of because everybody was like, you can't breed a wild caught scrub, and so I was like, I'll just keep them and just see what I can figure out. And so I would say 2 years, 3 years into it, all of a sudden you started to see, I could see them they were going through the motions. Yeah. Like at first I put them together, and the first year I put them together, they didn't want anything to do with each other. They didn't even like go to the same side of the cage. They just like hung out on opposite sides. They were in that 48 by 28 by 28 vision cage is what I had them in. When I put them, they each had one of those, but that's what I put them in together. And they just would stay on opposite sides of the cage. The next year I put them together, they hung out together, but I didn't see any copulation. The next year I had them, they copulated, and she swelled and started doing all the right things, but then nothing happened. Then the next year I had them, she swelled and then she laid. But she laid like in January, like real early, like in my cooling period. So I didn't have everything heated up as much either.
Okay. Huh.
But so it was a progression. It was definitely a progression of me just kind of letting them get used to everything here. And I guess it took them a while to seem to like each other or to go through the motions. But it was weird. You could see them get better. You could see everything else like kind of work itself out. And I think I only bred them because I was patient, which I think is what's worked for me in a lot of things.
Sure. Was there anything different that final year that you noticed from the previous years?
She used an S box. So I had always had a Rubbermaid in there with a hole cut on top of it underneath the basking spot. And she had never gone in it.
Huh.
She would go behind it. She'd sit on top of it. She'd do whatever else. And then as soon as they started copulating, she started going in the nest box. And I used those. Do I even have them anymore? I don't even know if I have them anymore. I had these Rubbermaid containers that were like, I don't know, they're big. They're probably like 5 or 7 gallon Rubbermaid containers. They're like all dark blue. And I had those, and I just had a hole cut out of the top. And so she would just sit on top, and she would go in there. And so that was the main difference I saw. But the thing was, I didn't have basking stuff on at that point in time because I didn't think because it just didn't seem like the right time yet. So I didn't. So I think I missed some of the behavior that probably would have happened because I had turned stuff off at that time.
Okay. Interesting. And how long was the incubation period on the eggs?
I feel like it was like 80 some days. I feel it was like 83 or something like that. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I've seen a range from like upper 70s to like low 90s but like a pretty big range, I think, for pythons. So that's kind of one thing I'm trying to kind of figure out over time is what ranges correlate with what temperatures. And then I also have a very undeveloped, probably incorrect, but interesting theory that they might be somewhat temperature sex determinant. Just based on some clutches that I've had and seen of, I mean, almost entirely male or entirely female outcomes.
I think I made all girls, so maybe that's true.
What temperature were you incubating at then?
I do everything at 87.
Okay.
So
I smack dab in the middle of what I've seen. So maybe.
So years ago, I had womas, and I had a lot of infertile, or I'd have the animals go full term and then die in pip. And Dave Barker was one and he was like, "What are you incubating at?" And I said, "I think I had him at like 89." And he was like, "Drop down to 87, you'll see a difference." And I did see a difference, so I've just kept it that way the whole time.
Cool.
So I do that for everything. But I've seen a variation in olive pythons too, where I've had some hatch in the 60s and some hatch in the 80s for them too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel like with like monitors or something, there, you expect a bit of a range, but I think a lot of with a lot of snakes or like pythons and boas, or pythons in particular. I'm not going to say boas because they range greatly sometimes, but
Right.
we've been here for 2 hours. But I feel like, you know, like with ball pythons, you expect it within 2 or 3 days most of the time, or
Right.
green tree pythons, you know, if they're above day 53, you're hacking all your eggs open to save your drowning babies. And
Right.
so I always find it interesting when there is a range like that, like with the scrubs, or like what you saw with your olives.
Yeah, and I wish I had that. I mean, I wish I had that written down here, but I'm pretty sure 83 was what it seemed like it was for me.
Yeah, I think the earliest I've had was, I think it was right around 83. But I had in my first barnet clutch, I had one go to 95.
Oh wow,
that was crazy. I felt.
That'd be nerve-wracking. It's too long.
You're telling me. I wish these things would fucking speed up. But man, at this point, what are some of your kind of future goals or plans as far as where you're going to take your collection and the work you're doing with that?
Yeah, I don't know if I know. So my future plans are that I don't know what these plans entail, but like I could potentially retire from the zoo at 30 years in. So if I were to retire from that job, I would be like 54 years old. So I wouldn't be very old. I could get over half my pay the day I retire, more or less, is how it works. And so I've thought about building up a collection to do stuff so I can just do that. I kind of think if I just kept the collection that I have now and just paid more attention and bred everything, because there's definitely stuff I forget to put together, or I don't put them together all the way, or I don't.
Yeah.
Just because life's busy. So
Sure.
If I were to have everything go, then I mean I probably could do it with the collection I have. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't mind bulking up a few things. I've been building up an Amazon tree boa collection just because I had those a long time and I really liked them, and
yeah.
So I've been putting them together for the last few years, and so I have a nice red collection now. I don't know that I would do much different. I feel like my collection is how I like it.
Cool.
Ball pythons seem to be what I sell the most of, as far as like when I'm going to a show. People ask me the most for MacLots and things like that, but you can only sell so many of those things.
Sure.
You know, I don't need to make 100 of those, but I could.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I could maybe do that with ball pythons or more. I don't know. I mean, I have a nice collection of short tail pythons that I really like. I don't know what I really would add. I think I'm kind of in a good spot. Again, we'll see what happens with that. But
yeah,
you know, I was talking to Matt Minatola last night, and he was talking about his rough scale pythons, and I was like, you know, I have never had rough scale pythons. Something like that intrigues me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind having more. Like, I feel like I'm making, say, roughly 30 clutches a year now. Something like that is what I'd probably make. I wouldn't mind getting that to like 50 somehow.
Well,
just if I was going to do it for a living.
Sure.
And maybe do like more obscure stuff. But if I'm doing corn snakes, I'm doing Hondurans, and I've got kind of like all the gamut of prices and things and a little bit of variety. And
yeah,
I don't know, like, and again, like who knows what I'll come across next week that I like and want to do something different. And I've thought about some Mountain Kings recently. I don't even know why I was thinking about that, but like,
yeah, they're badass.
I saw some, what is it? The Santa Rita. Is that right? The Santa Rita Arizonas.
Probably,
I was like, holy crap, those things are beautiful. And I was like, do I need some of those? I don't know. But, you know, I don't know. I'm in a good spot. I think I'll have what I have, and then I might expand upon a couple, maybe make a couple projects bigger. I guess we'll see how things sell. I feel like that's what I do at the zoo too, is like we make babies depending on what people want. So like if someone wants a whole bunch of treatable dart frogs, then we make a whole bunch. If they don't want them, we don't make them. You know, somebody wants annulated boas, we make annulated boas. If we don't need them, then we don't make them. And so I feel like I could probably do that with my collection and just kind of figure out what sells well, and you know what. And I mean I know what sells well pretty much, but kind of expand upon stuff like that.
Hell yeah! Is there like a dream species or two that you're like, if I could, or if I felt like it, this would be the pinnacle for me?
I don't know if I have a dream. Well, my dream species would be if we could like import on Pelly pythons. I would like that. That's probably the top of my list as far as things I would love to have if I could have something different. I mean, I wouldn't mind adding a few chondros at this point in time, but I'd like to do just like the yak localities. I wouldn't mind adding I don't need many, but maybe just like a pair or two. I think a pair or two of those would be just kind of, I've had them in the past. I've had a pretty good amount of them in the past. I've only ever hatched 3, but I wouldn't mind hatching more.
Yeah.
So, I think that would be something I wouldn't mind dabbling in a little bit more. I love emeralds. Like, I love emeralds more than I love chondros probably. But the things that I've done to have success with them, at least at the zoo, has been daily spraying, daily paying attention, daily whatever else. And just my life at home does not work for that at this point in time. So maybe whenever I get to the point where I'm not at work every day and I come in here, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to be in here for I'm not going to be in here spraying them in the face for 20 minutes at a time just because life's busy. So they're not conducive to what I had, but I would love to get to the point where I had like a collection of stuff like that. And if I were to do this for a living, then I probably would do that. Now, whether we get to that point or not, I don't know. So we'll see. I still don't know what I want to do as far as that kind of thing goes, because I really don't know that I want to leave that job at that point. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But if I could not work weekends, which my schedule is very flexible, I get to do a lot of things, but we do have to work weekends and holidays for the most part. And so if I could not have to do that and then be home and not miss all the things that I miss, which again, I get to do, I get to skip out and go to games and do whatever else, but it would be nice not having to worry about that. Yeah.
Well, it at least from my perspective, it sounds like you have it pretty well figured out, and definitely something that I admire what you've been able to put together over there. Definitely something that I hope to work towards myself one day.
Well, thanks.
So for everyone who's listening, where can they support you? Where can they find you online and your available animals, all that stuff?
So I have a MORPH market account, DJM Reptiles. You can just search my name. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I think DJM Reptiles on Instagram, and then just Dennis McNamara on Facebook. Pretty accessible. People message me fairly regularly, that some I know, some I don't know. I go to Daytona every year. I haven't missed one of those since like 95. I do Tinley both times a year. And then there's a Virginia Beach show, a show me show that I need to go book and figure out how to make sure I go to.
Okay.
But that's where I am. And then if you just reach out to me and we can figure out something.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really enjoyed this conversation. And I think a lot of people who are listening live and will listen later are going to enjoy it as well. So I'll throw you backstage for a minute and close out the show. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks. Fun.
All right. Night. All right, everybody. There's the episode with Dennis. I really enjoyed hearing his really unique perspective that we're not really able to hear from too many different people, as far as the kind of bridging the gap between the zoo world and the private world. So this might be one I have to go listen back to kind of catch some of the information that there was a lot dropped tonight. So for me, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, you have right over here, Scrub Shepherd, and then just my name, Stephen Kush, on Facebook. For anybody who is interested in the Scrub Python talk we had going on tonight, check out the Somalia group over on Facebook. All things Scrub Pythons, Bolin's Pythons. It's a community that we're starting for people who keep these snakes, but also people who don't and just are interested in them, where there's no barrier to access of information, no gatekeeping, none of that nonsense. And if you like this show, you want to check out any of the other shows here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, subscribe, like, share, all of that good stuff. Do all the same on the streaming services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You guys know the drill. But I will sign out for tonight. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you back here next Wednesday.